Hi, it's Carl Dubler with Imply. If you haven't already, you're going to be asked to bring in more and more real-time data into your analytics application. Now, every database out there says that they can do stream data. What they mean by that is they can connect to streaming sources. But when it comes to ingesting that data, they're still using the same batch mode that they always use. Now, of course, Druid can also do batch mode data as well. But without true stream ingestion, you're not really doing real-time analytics. So let's see how Druid does it. So what gives Druid true stream ingestion? Well, I think it's the combination of these four characteristics: native connectivity, the ability to scale to billions of events per day, immediate queryability, query on arrival of the data, and guaranteed consistency. Let's start by talking about native connectivity. Well, there's not a whole lot to say. Druid has native connectivity to both Kafka and Kinesis and anything that uses those APIs. So I'll just draw, if I can remember here, the Kafka logo. You don't need to install a connector for this capability. We just natively support it, so no connector to maintain. Now, as far as the ability to scale to billions of rows, I explain our unique architecture in a couple of other different videos, but let me just do a brief recap of it here, because in order to scale out to handle millions of events per second and billions of events per day in a real-time application, you need an architecture with independently scalable components. So here's a brief simplified review of that in Druid. We have query nodes, which of course process queries, and then we have data nodes. I'm going to draw three of them here. You can have one, you can have thousands of these if you want. And then below all that, we have deep storage, which could be something like S3 in the cloud, or you could be running Hadoop on premise. Either way. Now, this architecture you can scale out to meet any kind of stream data needs that you have. You can simply add a new data node. And unlike our competition, when you do add a data node, it uses deep storage to automatically rebalance the cluster. No manual effort needed, no having to shut down the cluster in order to do that. So this flexibility of having separate storage and compute really gives you an easy way of scaling out, which is going to be critical if you're going to handle billions of events per day, which many Druid customers do, by the way. It's very, very common for them to do that. Now, immediate or query on arrival. What we mean by that is as data comes into the system, it comes into the data layer here, we actually put it in memory while we process it. I'm going to draw an old school memory chip there, like the kind I used to install in IBM PCs back in the late 80s. Data is held in memory here while it is being segmented, columnarized, compressed, and indexed, and all the good stuff that we do in Druid. Before then, it is committed to deep storage. So while the data is sitting here, you can query it. We call that query on arrival. This means that you can immediately begin to get insights from the data that's coming into the system. Unlike most every other system out there, you're not going to have to wait for everything to be committed to storage and then recached back up to the compute layer where you can finally take advantage of it. Now, the fourth characteristic is guaranteed consistency, or what you might know as exactly once semantics. When you have a lot of data coming in, again, millions or billions of events, you want to be sure that it's consistent, because a few mistakes here and there can really add up in a high volume environment. Let me give you an example of a very common inconsistency that we see in the streaming world. Let's say that Kafka sends you an event, a message, here's this event. What normally happens is then Kafka is going to wait for you to send back an acknowledgement of that event. But let's say that for whatever reason, this acknowledgement doesn't make it back to Kafka. So Kafka is going to assume that you didn't get the message, and it's going to resend the event again, which leads to duplicate data. maybe not a big deal with a few rows, but if you're talking billions of events, this could be a really big problem. And you wouldn't believe the hoops that some companies go through to custom code their way out of this problem and stop the system and catch these problems when they happen. You won't need to do that with Druid because Druid will guarantee the consistency of the data. It catches problems like this. It does exactly want semantics without you having to run some sort of custom code or custom Lambda solution to get it. So, as the demands on your application increase for real-time data, be sure you have a database that can do true stream ingestion. It can natively connect to streaming sources. It can handle billions of events per day. It can give you query on arrival for immediate results, and it guarantees consistency, which is what Druid does. Well, I hope you enjoyed this brief Druid Lightboard. I look forward to seeing you around the Druid community.